Hello everyone, today we're gonna continue our journey on studying BaZi. By trade, I'm actually a tech entrepreneur and I'm studying BaZi to learn about the interdependencies among the elements. And they actually reflect eerily of the facts of life. So let's get into it. This is our second lesson and we are going to learn together about birth and control. These are some of the terms on birth. So we're gonna talk about 谢, 好, 克, 生, 治, and 化. Every one of them, actually, this applies to all elements. 生 means give birth to, and it means generate and give birth to. So A 生 B means A gives birth to B. 泄, and these are the pinyin here, that means leak or being drained off. Now, 泄 is actually a neutral / a slightly positive connotation. So A 泄于 B means A is draining B. And that's just a natural course of B, giving birth to A. So A is draining B. This is not bad, actually. Now, how is being overly draining B? So this is the negative connotation. So A 耗于 B means A is overly consuming B's energy. So this is overly leaking or being overly drained. And the last one is the 化, which is dissolves or transform. Now, it has a neutral connotation. Sometimes it's being used for single elements, and more often it's used for combinations, and which we'll study the combinations in the future. So, 生, 泄, 好, 化. Let's talk about control. So, control, there are two types of control. They all mean control, but 治 means orderly control. This has a positive connotation. And the reason it has a positive connotation is in BaZi, something will always control something else. And the goal within BaZi is to actually achieve equilibrium / flow. You actually don't want any element to have the final say. You actually don't want any element to be overly dominant. So neutral equilibrium is the goal. And so 治 means that you are controlling the thing that is excessive, which brings order. And that's the orderly regulation. So 治 has a positive connotation. 克, on the other hand, has a slightly negative connotation or / neutral. It means forceful restraint. You are forcefully controlling something. So that is 治 and 克. Every element gives birth to some element and control some other elements. So let's walk through what this means. So here's a chart that shows water gives birth to wood. Wood gives birth to fire. Fire gives birth to earth. Earth gives birth to metal. Metal gives birth to water, which then gives birth to wood. And the cycle continues. Now, water controls fire. That makes sense. Then fire controls metal. Metal controls wood. And wood controls earth. So all the red lines means controls. Let's go over each one of them in more specific order. And I'm going to teach us the mnemonic devices on how I remember them. So water. What does it give birth to? It gives birth to wood. And the way you visualize that is water nourishes the tree. Water gives birth to wood. In Chinese, we call it 水生木. So that's the 生 part. Or we can also say 木泄于水. Because water gives birth to wood, wood is draining energy from water. And as mentioned before, this 泄 is not a bad thing. You naturally want to 木泄于水. Now, if you have too much wood, then 木耗掉水. And that is excessive. Why is that excessive? Goes back to the goal of the BaZi is to create equilibrium. So if 木泄掉水, that means you have too little water, and that's not good. The goal is equilibrium or flow. Basically, everything just kind of connects together. You complete the chain. So in a future lesson, we will also talk about why 木泄于水 is actually not a bad. There's actually a technical term for it called 石山泄秀. 这个泄, this泄is the same as this 泄. Water, what does it control? Water extinguishes fire. So what it controls is fire. And so that's the visualization. Now, what controls water? If you have too much water, it becomes like a flood. And earth blocks the water. So what that means is earth 主克水. So earth is forcibly controlling the water. So when you visualize it, you think of water and what should control it. If you have too much of it, then earth will control the water by blocking it. Now here's a pop quiz. We mentioned that everything has something it controls and everything has what it controls it. And so if earth controls water, then what controls earth? Well, that's wood. And before that, why does it matter that we need to talk about what controls the thing that controls me? And that's because BaZi, again, desperately wants equilibrium. So if in my BaZi and I am the master, we call it the day master, or me, the master is water, and I see a lot of earth, and that's not good news. That means something is attacking me. In order to achieve equilibrium, I need to find the things to reduce the effect of the thing that controls me. In this case, it's earth. So how do I reduce earth's effect? I have two ways. I can find the thing that will control earth, i.e., I will find the thing that controls the thing that controls me. That's how you kind of keep the balance. Or I can absorb the thing that controls me. Let's find out what both of those things are. The thing that controls earth is wood. So that's why we say 木制土. Wood controls earth. And this 制, the reason I'm using the word 制 is because it restores order. If earth is controlling me as a water, then in order to restore equilibrium, I need to say 制. And so one of the terms is called 时山治沙. This is why it's called 制, is because it's got a positive connotation. Now, besides controlling the thing that controls me, I can also reduce the effect of the thing that controls me by absorbing the thing that controls me. So what does earth give birth to? Let's take a look. Earth gives birth to metal. So the other way is to use metal, which absorbs or dissolves earth, because earth will naturally find a place to go. Does that make sense? Now, the metal that is here is the same metal that gives rise to water. So what does it give to rise to water? Is metal. And the way you visualize is that the metal melts to become water. And so it's also used, sometimes it's called 金化水. So if your goal is to counteract earth, in your case, you can also use metal. That forms another kind of a universal law. The thing that controls you, which is earth, in this case, if water is the master that you're considering, the thing that controls you, you have two ways to counteract it. First, you find the thing that also controls the thing that controls you, which is wood. Or you find the thing that the thing controls you gives birth to, which is metal. But that thing also happens to give birth to you. It's always that. The thing that controls you will always give birth to the thing that gives birth to you. That is a universal law of BaZi. If you look at like right now we're looking at water, but if you look at fire, wood, earth, it's always that way. And so we have this relationship, and we're going to create terms for those relationships, which will be at the bottom here, okay? It's called 比肩, 身材, 食神, 三观, etc. But this lesson is actually to teach the fundamental reasons why we have these terms. The thing that controls you, in order to counteract it, you can have two ways. One is to find the thing that also counteracts it, and that is the thing that you give birth to. Or you can alleviate its impact by creating a flow such that the thing that controls you have an outlet to go into. And that outlet is precisely the element that gives birth to yourself. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah, I love it. This is great. That's why it's a self-consistent logic, and you can build a ton of rules out of it. Okay, so close your eyes, think about water. What does it give birth to? Water gives birth to wood because water nourishes trees. What is afraid of? It's afraid of earth because earth blocks a lot of water. Imagine a flood. Earth blocks the flood. what gives birth to it? Metal melts into water. And then what does it, the water, control? It controls fire. All right, that's water. So we're going to go through the rest pretty quickly. Let's talk about wood. Wood gives birth to fire. And you imagine that because most of the big fires started in the forest. So wood gives birth to fire. Wood controls earth, and it controls earth by extending its roots into the soil, thus controlling earth. Wood is controlled by metal. And the way you visualize that is think of trees and bushes and grass. It's really afraid of a metal tractor that just cuts it off. So trees and branches are super afraid of metal because metal is used to cut trees. And wood is birthed by water because water nourishes the trees to grow. When you think about a wood, you have to think, well, I'm birthed by water. I will give rise to fire because the fire can start in a forest. I'm really afraid of metal. So when you're a tree, you're always afraid of metal. And you control earth by extending your roots onto the ground. Fire. Fire. So visualize fire in your head. What does it give birth to? Fire gives birth to earth. And the way you visualize that is imagine you burn down a bunch of things and these things become ashes. The ashes are the earth. Fire is really good at melting the metal. And so it controls metal. It can melt the metal. Fire is afraid of water. And that's pretty easy analogy. If you have a big fire in your house, you want water to extinguish the fire. And fire is birthed by trees, wood. That's because in a forest, that's usually what starts the fire. Now, let's talk about earth. Earth is a grand, big soil earth. What does it give birth to? It gives birth to metal because you usually find metal under the ground, inside the soil. So it gives rise to metal. And earth, as we mentioned before, blocks water. So it's really good at blocking water. What it's afraid of? It's afraid of trees that will extend its roots onto the ground. And it is birthed by fire because fire turns things into ashes. So earth came out of fire. Let's talk about metal. Metal gives rise to water. So metal melts into water. What is metal afraid of? Metal is always afraid of fire. What it's not afraid of? It controls woods. Metal is used to cut woods. And then if you're metal, then what gives rise to you? Well, you find metal in the earth, you under the ground. So it comes from earth. By the way, water is used by the color black because it represents knowledge. That's why it's black as opposed to blue. So usually the words are just fire, wood, but we need to incorporate polarity. And so all these words, stems, are basically shortcuts for the element/polarity combination. There's a combination. So I like to think when you memorize things, I usually no longer memorize them as wood, fire, and whatnot. I usually memorize here are the two elements, and these are the things that it gives birth to. These are the things that give birth to it. These are the things it controls. So you can skip the middle step. You just have to internalize to yourself that these are the things it controls by the actual element, polarity combinations. So 人鬼, that's the water, give birth to 甲乙. And then it's controlled, because it's water, it's controlled by 丙丁 are the yang fire and the yin fire. And 人鬼 are controlled by 戊己, because the water is really afraid of 戊己, which is the soil of the earth. And 人鬼 is being given birth by the metals, which is 身心. So right now, you might be 人鬼 is water, it's given birth by metal is 身精. So you have this hop of what is it? And then you convert it into what's give birth by, and then you convert it into elements. But the right way is to put them into flashcards, which I did. What you want to do instead is 人鬼, if you see those two words, it's controlled by 戊己. It controls 丙丁. It gives birth to 甲乙, and then it's birthed by 身精. So when you see a chart, you don't see like trees, you don't see the fire, you don't see those words. You only see these characters. And you just have to almost build that relationship immediately. 人鬼, and you see like, oh, 生金, that's a good thing. I like it. And when you see 物己, oh no, that's something it's going to attack 人鬼. So be careful. And then when you see like 丙丁, oh, that's the wealth. That's nice. And then when you see 甲寅, oh, these are the things I give birth to, which I can use. So that will help you get better and better at reading a chart, which we'll get into in the future episodes. Similarly, when you look at 甲乙 in the chart, and this is always the day master. We'll talk about that in the future, but this is the main character. Think of it as the main character. And 甲乙 gives birth to 丙丁. And it controls 戊己, and it's being controlled by 庚辛, and it's birthed by 壬癸. So you have to close your eyes, imagine 甲乙, and this is your main character. What is give birth to? It's giving birth to 丙丁, and it controls 戊己, because these are earth. And it's being controlled by 庚辛, because they are metal, and it's birthed by 壬癸, because that's water. You have to drop the thing in the middle, because then it's like when you see 庚辛, it's like, oh no, I see 庚辛, that means that's the thing that will control me. And when you see 丙丁, and the main character is 甲乙, oh, that's good. I can use fire because I'm wood. So build that, internalize that into your system. That's going to really help you. 丙丁, when you see 丙丁, what are they happy about? Are they happy about 戊己 because that's their children? And they're also happy about 甲乙 because that's what gives birth to it. It's afraid of 壬癸because it's afraid of water. And it controls the metal, which is 生金. Now, when I say it's happy or not happy, it doesn't always mean it's happy. When it's birthed by too many of the same thing, it's not always that happy. But it's definitely not happy when it's controlled by 壬癸. But if 壬癸is too little, and that has its opposite problem. So nothing is purely good and nothing is purely bad. It's all about equilibrium, which that is the main concept of BaZi, which technically has a lot of parallels in life. 戊己 represent earth, and it's afraid of trees. So 甲乙, it's afraid of that. And what are they happy about? It's going to give birth to 生金. So when they see 生金, it's like, okay, my children, I can use them. That's cool. And it's being birthed by 丙丁. So when you see 丙丁in a 戊己 chart, you're like, oh, that is something that gives birth to me, that gives me energy, and it controls water. So the earth always controls water. All right, 庚辛 is afraid of fire. So when you see fire, you should talk about fire. So the first thing you look at something, you always think about what it's afraid of. And then you look on the chart for the thing that it's afraid of. And then you look at what is the thing that can combat it. Usually that's the thing it's birthed by. So 庚辛, you see what gives birth to 庚辛. That is 戊己, that's found in the earth. And then it gives birth to 壬水, which is the water. And so when you see 戊己 and 壬水 in a metal chart, the main character is metal. That's usually a positive sign. And then what it controls? It controls the 甲乙, the trees. So highly recommend that we make flashcards on those. And when you're driving, you don't look at this video and think, I am talking about 丙丁. Fire, oh, it's both afraid of water. So whenever I see a fire main character and I see fire, I see water, that's a negative sign. I need to control that. I need to counteract that. Then you think, okay, if I see fire, I need either the thing that gives birth to me or I need to produce something to counteract. What does fire produce? Fire burns things into ashes, so they produce earth. And the thing that gives birth to me, the fire, is wood, because wood, forest will burn into fire, will create a fire. So wood and earth are going to help me with water, which exactly it does. And then what do I control? Well, I'm a fire, I'm a flaming fire, so I will control the metal. So you start with the main character and you kind of think about what it's afraid of, and then you think about what you produce and what produces you, because those two things will help you alleviate what you are afraid of. And then you worry about what do you control, because that is your kind of what you output, what you get. And so that's the way I visualize it. I'm trying to talk about BaZi from a tech entrepreneur perspective, from first principles, using English with some of the Chinglish spill in. And so I'm pretty sure the audience is going to be super limited, which is totally fine, because I'm using these videos to help learn BaZi together with you. So hopefully this is useful. Hopefully some of the mnemonic devices that are used here are going to be insightful. These are my original thoughts when learning BaZi. So next few lessons, we are going to talk about, so when we say birth by, give birth to, control, there's too many words, right? So in Chinese, there are literally characters to describe the relationships. Isn't this fascinating? You literally start with 5 elements plus 2 polarities, and so you get 10. And within the 10, you have the control and the birth. And then within that, you have relationships, and then you have create more words to describe them. And you have a shortcut, which are these words. That is the combination of element, comma, polarity. This is just the heavenly stems. There are 10 heavenly stems, which we go through. Then there are 12 earthly branches. And earthly branches are a lot more complex than the heavenly stems. So we're on lesson number 2. And how far are we into kind of the beginning of BaZi? I think we're 5% into it. There's technically 95% more that we don't know. And you need to go through about 20 lessons in order to have a beginning shot in understanding BaZi. But don't go too fast. The idea is to really memorize certain things. And there's no way to get around it, besides creating flashcards and just think about them when you're driving or doing errands. At the end of all this, it's gonna be super fascinating. And to reiterate, why are we learning BaZi? Why am I learning BaZi? When I look at my BaZi, it is eerily predictive of my life. I put a spreadsheet down, and then all the years, see, am I doing well that year? Am I not doing well? Is my career progressing? Is not progressing those years? And it mapped very accurately to the years. And there's actually a really good explanation for the idiosyncrasies that I experience as a person. So to the extent that it's that accurate, I found it eerily irresistible to try to learn its rules. And learning the rules within BaZi, it's actually a reflection of societal norms about philosophies of life, about ways of operating, and it's self-consistent. And that's why I like it a lot. Now, obviously, I'm not an expert by any stretch of imagination. I am also a beginner. I do think that because I'm a beginner, I can break things down into a more manageable way such that it gels with the other beginners out there. So thank you so much for watching. And hopefully in the next lesson, we're going to teach you more about BaZi. And we're going to teach you about the relationships, the terms that refer to the relationships. Until next time, thanks you so much for watching. Bye-bye.